What's up, guys? We're live together for the first time since the first video
Yeah, look where we are.
with Casey.
All in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
Casey.
Yeah, so we just watched The Holdovers, the new Alexander Payne movie starring Paul Giamatti, and yeah, we're going to talk about it right now.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
I'm a boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another iPopcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Casey.
Yeah, like I said, we're here to talk about the newest Alexander Payne movie starring Paul Giamatti. And the other actors here of note are Dominic Sessa playing Angus Tully and Divine Joy Randolph playing Mary Lamb. But yeah, we just got out of this movie just a second ago. We have barely said anything about how we felt about it, so I'm anxious to know. Like, do we like this movie? Do we love this movie? Are we in the middle?
I don't know. I kind of loved it, honestly. Watching the trailers, and you hear all the reviews that have already come out now, how it's such a great movie, and it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, I thought it delivered. You look like you're not going to want to be the odd man out here. How do you feel about it?
Well, love is a very strong word, in my opinion. I did enjoy it. I would describe the movie as pleasant.
Very pleasant.
Like, especially...
Cozy.
Cozy. I think it also has to do with the time in which we saw this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's nearly the middle of November.
Yeah.
People are gearing up for Christmas, watching Christmas movies.
Mm-hmm.
This happens to take place during the Christmas holidays. That's the major plot of it. And I think that added to my enjoyment of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was engaged the whole time. I wouldn't say I absolutely loved it, but, I wasn't yawning. I wasn't checking my phone. I was just,
And it does have a kind of a slow pace, so I think that's to its credit that it doesn't lose you at any point. For me anyway, it didn't lose me, even though it is moving along slowly.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice... it's a different take on a holiday movie. I would say this is considered a holiday movie, but it's not just straight up, boom, this is a Christmas movie. But it is a nice, feel-good type of movie in the end overall, and was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, so the basic setup is we've got our main cast of characters here. So Paul Giamatti plays an ancient history teacher at a high school.
which halfway through I was unsure what he taught until...
I think he says it.
Ancient Civilization.
Ancient civilization, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What's funny is I took an ancient history class, or ancient civilization class, in my high school, and never had one offered in college or anything.
Yeah, it kind of made me interested in a class like that, yeah.
Frankly, I thought he taught Latin or something. I saw on the chalkboard behind him there was some Latin words and everything, and they say some Latin words.
He speaks in
That's
Latin.
ancient
It would go with ancient
yeah.
civilization and history, but I just thought he was just a standard Latin professor.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's not just your average school. It's an all boys boarding school,
Like an upper class all boys boarding school.
They're
Yeah,
all future leaders of America type kids.
and you can tell this guy is a little jaded about how all of these kids kind of, in his mind anyway, were kind of born with a silver spoon in their mouth and everything. They didn't have to work for anything they got; they just got everything handed to them. But he also went to the school, so there's an irony built into it already. But he's at this boarding school, and every year some of the students, to varying degrees, some students don't go home for the holidays, and the few that are left behind, some poor teacher gets stuck with the duty of having to watch over these kids for their whole break. And none of the teachers like this guy. He's a pretty crotchety guy in the beginning. You can see why he's
a curmudgeon for sure.
Yeah, he's not a super likable guy. He's got some kind of condition where he smells like fish all the time. He's an unusual. There's everything about him is unusual. People pick on his eye, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. But there's a thing with his eye. People pick on him for his eye. So he gets stuck with this job that nobody wants, and we can get into it. But there's a little bit of there's a moment at first where there's several kids stuck here, but eventually somebody's rich dad shows up with a helicopter and takes everybody out. So
which they show in the trailer, so that's not really a spoiler.
And I was happy that I didn't see the trailer because I was genuinely surprised by that. There was a point with all the kids there. I was kind of thinking to myself, I wasn't really enjoying the vibe with all these
With
kids
all of them.
interacting and everything. And when they all left, and it was just that one kid left, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
things are going to get interesting. I am looking forward to seeing him and Paul Giamatti butt heads. Like, this is great.
And I think to that extent, like, if you're not sure how you're feeling about this movie, see if it picks up for you after the helicopter. Because I don't know if that was the case for you, but, like, for me, this movie does... I liked it the whole way through. It does its best work with the smallest cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was engaged up until the helicopter scene, but, you know, I had reached a point where it's like, I don't know how much longer I can tolerate this. You know, I enjoy... These kids are fine, but, yeah, once they left, I was like, all right, now things are interesting now. And I'm in it.
And, you know, there's obviously, like, parallels to be drawn between Angus and Paul. And those parallels kind of... You're seeing those parallels grow, the things that they have in common. They're finding out those parallels within themselves. And this relationship forms there. And you kind of end up with, like, one of these... You know, all these people that wouldn't expect to find themselves in this circumstance find themselves, like, ramshackling together a family out of this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really effective for that. Like, I like movies like that where these people that had no intention of being with each other, especially on something like the holidays like this, it brings these people together and they find their commonality and everything. So
Yeah, I think it did a really great job with character development and character growth and giving you the backstory on these characters.
And that's, depending on the person, this might just tickle your heartstrings in the right kind of way. Because there's something that I won't spoil that is the spoileriest thing we could say, and I won't do it. But at the end of this, the thing that this all culminates to, you know, you could certainly find yourself with a little lump in your throat at the end of this, because they spend so much time with the characters that you feel like you've kind of grown with them, and you know these people by the end of it.
Part of the family with them during this time almost,
Yeah, and they all have their imperfections, obviously. None of these are like your traditional, like, nobody's like this perfect protagonist. It's like everybody's super flawed, but that's the cool thing that kind of holds this thing together for me. And yeah, and just like what Angus has like been through, and we got a cat trying to get in, you know.
And not just Angus, our character Mary.
Yeah.
Who's
every character
grieving.
kind of has like...
Yeah.
I would say Paul probably doesn't necessarily have like a tragic thing that has happened. He's had something that's kind of affected his life, yeah, but the two other main characters have like pretty tragic things that have happened that they've had to like overcome.
I'd say in his life that was a tragedy, you know, because it like changed how things were gonna go, and it's made it where he didn't feel like he was. It feels like he's never felt like he was on quite the right path. He's just like wafting through. Because him ending back at this school was not his ultimate goal.
That's true.
Like back at the school that he went to. Yeah. But yeah, and we should talk about Divine Joy Randolph's character Mary a little bit, because she is like something just happened to her.
Yes, and you guys don't recognize her.
No.
Okay.
Might not have seen the thing you're talking about.
She played Lady Reed recently in a movie called My Name is Dolomite.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it great?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Rudy
I heard that
Gobert.
was like Eddie Murphy's return to form for a minute, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of people said, like, you know, it's a biopic about Rudy Ray Moore and him making the movie Dolomite, and it parallels The Disaster Artist. And,
Okay.
But where I felt like in certain aspects of The Disaster Artist failed, Dolomite was just so charming.
Okay.
And at the end of the movie, like...
We got to see that.
It tugs at your heartstrings, and like the last 5 minutes of the movie, you're like, oh my gosh, yes.
She's certainly a standout in this.
She's great, yeah.
I know we're a limited cast here and everything, but it certainly made me want to watch more stuff that she's been in, and I think Paul Giamatti. I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen enough to say something like this, but I think this is like maybe a career-defining.
But you haven't.
For the guy, but I haven't seen some of the.
And you haven't seen other movies by this director, like Sideways, which is that's a career-defining moment for him as well.
Yeah, I kind of.
Don't get me wrong. He is fantastic in this movie, but there are other movies that he gives just as good a performance.
And like you said, even with Alexander Payne in the past too. So.
And Alexander Payne, he directed a personal favorite of mine, Election.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, and that's what kind of like I haven't seen in many of his other movies. I think I've
seen Nebraska and About Schmidt.
Okay, About Schmidt. I never finished Sideways.
I love Sideways.
I should probably revisit that, but like just the fact that he did Election, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give it a shot.
And then, well, so the other thing is, one of the recent Alexander Payne movies I have seen is Downsizing, and I was so disappointed with Downsizing.
I heard a lot of people hated that.
I really strongly don't recommend that unless you just are a huge Alexander Payne fan and have to be like a completionist or something. But this was nice to see. You know, this feels like, I feel like it's safe to say if you're a fan of his, and most people who were a fan of his were disappointed with Downsizing, this is a return to some really solid filmmaking, and I'm glad that we had talked about, like, are they going to keep the film grain in there? Are they going to keep it looking like retro? And I thought that's
And
but how did you feel about that?
Now that you mentioned that, this movie does take place in 1970, basically the peak of the Vietnam War, which that does play an aspect into the plot. But the movie starts off with, like, old time Phil Grain, and the credits are done exactly like you're watching a movie from like 69 to 72.
From the very beginning, it like sets you. It's like here's what you got in store for you from like the opening thing, you know. And
throughout the movie, like even the way it was filmed and some of the shots, like it's like you're watching a movie from that era. And you can. I was actually thinking of actors from that era that you can replace these characters with. And it's funny. There's a scene in the movie where they go to the theater and there's a Dustin Hoffman movie playing, and I was actually thinking, Dustin Hoffman could have played Giamatti's character if this movie was made in like the late 60s, 70s, like this is great.
I guess, I was going to say he could play the kid, but he'd been too old at that point, but yeah.
And I thought the soundtrack here is also a good like tool to kind of get you in the mindset of this
A+ to the soundtrack
era. Yeah, you got some, I think there was some like Cat Stevens and some, it was just a great soundtrack from the time. And everything about the aesthetic, though, I just felt, again, like, it just felt so cozy. It just feels, this is the kind of movie you can, like, watch with your dad, but also, like, it's good. Like, everything is solid here, and the fact that it's R-rated lets them, have some leeway with the language and the kind of subject matter and stuff like that. But it's not like a hard R rating, like...
Yeah, it's just mainly language.
Hide the kids away.
Yeah, it's like basically only the language. Like, you could show your grandmother this movie. Like,
there's a little bit of nudity, like, in the form of, like, a old magazine.
Basically.
Which, I don't know, my brain, I don't know why I don't consider that real nudity.
But,
but
it's such an old magazine, it's
different
not even real anymore.
Some grandmas might be like, oh my.
Oh my, scandalous.
And it wasn't like a heavy film grain, I feel like, that it was in the trailers for the movie. I feel like they did pull back on it a little bit.
It just looks like the cameras it looks like they were using cameras from that time period.
Yeah.
And maybe they were.
They did it with the credits, and then like the first opening shot, you could see a graininess to it, but then like
they pulled it back a little bit,
and it was a nice transition, and just you don't even notice it.
And really it's telling a pretty simple story, and it's not a super short movie. And somehow I think it pulls that off really well, because like there's not, to sum up the story is pretty brief especially if you're not trying to spoil it, but there is a lot of meat.
It's just a lot of character development throughout the movie, basically.
And it feels like real people, like the kind of conversations that have feel real.
That's the thing I'll say is very positive. The dialogue throughout the entire movie was like
super authentic.
Yeah, like it just seemed like actual conversations you would have with somebody.
Yeah, and they didn't go too weepy with it. I've seen some, melodramas like that where eventually they do character development, and you're kind of like eye rolling. You're just like, okay.
For sure.
Right.
And I think there's times too where you could see. I think you're both gonna know what I'm talking about. But there's points where you can see like they could have made this choice, and that would have been what you expect. That would have been, that's heartwarming and nice and everything, and this is a holiday movie. Let's be nice. And then they subvert it a little bit, and it's not like it's like reality. It's not black and white. It's not like that's the end of all goodness in the world, and let's just, I guess I shouldn't say like blow our brains out or something, but whatever you want to say. But like it could fall into the fatalistic territory of like everything's hopeless. All my dreams are not going to realize themselves and all that. But it's not quite there either. But also it's not going to give you all the easiest things. Like there's a moment where it's like there was a decision, or I wish I could just say.
Well, there's like a little thing Paul Giamatti says, like your past is not who you are. You can always make.
You're not your father.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we want to do a quick spoilers? There's one particular scene I really love. There's a part in the movie in which Paul Giamatti and our main kid take a little field trip to Boston, and they're in the hotel room. He's waking up. He's taking his little go bag into the bathroom, and he spills his bottle of medication, falls on the floor.
Yes.
Paul picks it up and he reads it. And he's like, Lipopro or whatever. And
I think it's a made up. I didn't sound familiar to me.
Yeah. And he's like, Lipopro, and the kid kind of brushes it off like, oh, no, that's for
It's my vitamins.
my vitamins or whatever. And he's like, you mean for your depression? And the kid just like shrugs it off like whatever. And then,
slams the door.
And then he goes into his bag and he sees that he takes the exact same medication for depression. But
It's kind of being like, you're not the only one, dude.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like what I really loved about that is that Paul's mentality throughout the movie, one of the things that made him resent these kids so much is like he thought like, what do you kids have to be sad about? You know, you guys got your lives ahead of you. Why are you such, you know...
Your affluent families and everything.
You guys have all the things in the world. And then, like, that's, I think, when he realizes, like, wow, I mean, this kid's 17. He's taking the same medication I am.
I thought it was good that Mary kind of provided, like, a foil there, where it's like, she's so nice and understanding about everything, and she's dealing with this trauma of her son's death and everything, that she's sort of, like, she can handle Paul Giamatti's character and all his grouchiness and everything, but she'll put him in his place once in a while too. So if he says something like, these kids haven't been through anything they haven't suffered a day in their lives, she's like, shut up about that. You don't know that about these kids.
Yeah.
They actually have been through some shit. You know, so it's
turns
not
out,
like... Yeah, and it turns out, And that was the case with like every one of these. We didn't explore the other kids that left in the helicopter very much. Like you said, I think that's fine. I think it's fine that they were there, and I think it's fine that when we really zoomed in and focused on individual characters, it was our main three, because the movie got to do so much more with those three and make you so much more invested in those three, that in that culmination of all of it, it feels so much more satisfying. And then they wrap it up with such a tidy little bow. I think like it was great. There's a moment it felt like it could have ended, but that wouldn't have. I don't think that would have worked.
No, I think they needed to end it the way they did. It's like it ends on kind of a happy note as well. But if the part you're talking about, it would have been like
the biggest thing in the movie. The thing that I think kind of this. I don't want to say the whole movie hinges on it, but like the pinnacle that it's all building up to is after that moment that I thought, you know, you could have seen them ending it right there, but really glad they didn't, because for me this movie kind of just grew on me and grew on me and grew on me to the point at the end where I was like, oof.
I feel like
that took me by surprise.
Yeah, I feel like this is a movie I would definitely watch every year around the holiday time. It's
I was
one of
thinking
those
the same
type of
thing.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just it's warm enough, but not like saccharine sweet. But you might disagree over there. You sound like you do.
No, yeah, I'd say it's warm enough to, like, I thought of that while I was watching. Like, okay, this is a good holiday movie to watch during time of the year, but I guess you got to be in a particular mood. Like, it's not like your typical Christmas staple.
It's not like A Christmas Story and A Wonderful Life
or
and all
Christmas
that.
Vacation, you know. It's like, you know, if you're in a mood for something less serious and everything that happens to take place around the holidays, like, this is a prime Christmas story.
Yeah, and it's not like... You know, we've watched so many horror movies recently, it's almost like you're waiting for some traumatic thing to happen, or some really, really like, oh my god, that really changes things. And it's kind of nice once in a while. None of that.
It was
some surprises, sure, but
yeah, and like there were some dark moments, but it wasn't gut wrenching. You know, you're not gonna leave this movie feeling like.
You're gonna leave feeling good. Yeah. I mean, it makes you like feel
Overall.
for humanity and feel empathetic toward people, and really positive movie
Hopeful
experience.
for the future.
Yeah, after the bleakest, darkest movies in the world that we've been talking about recently, it's kind of a nice, refreshing little moment from away from that. We'll be back to that very soon, I'm sure. But
and especially with, you know, when this movie has been released, this is close to Oscar season. Typically, movies like this get nominated.
Somebody's getting nominated for this.
Somebody is getting nominated, and I think
Paul. Maybe Divine Joy, right?
Divine Joy, I think, I mean, I'm placing my bet right now. I think she's definitely going to get nominated for Best Actress for this.
Best supporting
Best supporting
actress.
actress.
Yeah.
No, not supporting. I mean, well, she's the only actress in it, basically. She
But I
would be
think they
main
would call
actress,
her.
right?
I would think they would consider Paul the
main
leader of this
character,
movie,
yeah.
and then
She's
Divine
still
Joy
kinda-
would get the supporting. The kid who I didn't recognize from anything, Dominic. I think he gave an award-worthy performance too. And there's a lot of moments where they have a lot of work to do. The camera looks at people's faces close up for long amounts of time, uncut scenes of dialogue and stuff. Like, it's not quite like a play, but you can tell these guys had to memorize and deliver on large chunks of dialogue without any breaks. So that's a challenge in and of itself.
And I'll tell you that kid, what was his name again?
Dominic Sessa, I think.
Okay.
Angus.
Dominic Sessa,
Angus in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen him in anything before, and I was, I thoroughly enjoyed his performance. But like while I was watching the movie, I was thinking, I'm not going to be surprised if he gets casted as like a serial killer or something at some point. Like, I want to see this kid play a villain.
He could probably pull that off.
He's got like some mannerisms and facial expressions. Not that he's anything like this in the movie, but just this actor, like I can see him in a role where he's playing a Batman villain or something, or a henchman. You know,
I think this kid's got a bright future in acting.
Yeah,
I don't know what he's done in the past. He may already be in a lot of great things already. So
yeah, we didn't do homework fully on that one, but
cast him as Scarecrow, Matt Reeves.
If we haven't seen him on anything, I would say this will open up the opportunities for him to get more work in the future if he needs help in that department. But yeah, I could see the award season being friendly to this thing, and I think it's looking like Oppenheimer is going to be a sweep, right?
I think so.
The only thing giving it a run for its money up until now was Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't think it will dominate over Oppenheimer.
I really don't.
I think this might be the biggest competition with Oppenheimer at the Oscars.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't see it going for Best Picture, maybe Screenplay, but I think the actors...
They might go for Best Picture.
I think the actors and the actresses might get the biggest nods as far as that goes.
And then we still got Poor Things coming up, which I feel the Oscar tingle.
Yeah, I've got high hopes for that movie. Let's rate them.
So, you go first.
You know, I was pleasantly engaged by this movie. I did not go in with the highest expectations, but I loved the characters and development and the way the movie goes. I was surprised by the way it turned in the beginning. I never saw the trailer, so I was surprised. I would give this a solid 8.
That's higher than I thought you were going to say.
I did not love it, but just the characters and all that, and I was like thinking like, I'm going to show this movie to my mom. Like, I think my mom would like it.
Yeah.
That in itself, and
then
that's how good a movie is.
And that's also not to say that it's for an older crowd, and we just happen to also enjoy it too.
Everybody.
It feels like it's for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, but other than some language and everything, the R rating, like, it's pretty tame. Like, little kids won't like this, obviously, but like most adults would be like, okay, this is interesting. Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I think this resonated with me quite a bit, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm gonna go pretty high with this one, and I'm gonna give it a 9.
I agree.
Nice.
Exactly with that. I give it a 9.
So high ratings across the board.
Yeah, one of the best of the year. Really surprising. I had seen people say this is like one to look out for. That surprised the heck out of me. I didn't think it was going to resonate with me the way it did, and don't underestimate this movie. It's one not to miss for sure. So yeah, I guess that's it for all of us. Stick around for the next video. You know what? I don't know what the next one is because we don't know when Dream.
Yeah, we were supposed to see Dream Scenario today, but it's not showing anywhere near us. So
it's apparently not coming out until the 22nd, according to IMDb.
So we'll figure out when that's coming out. But we appreciate you guys watching as always. Hope you enjoyed a video. We're all in the same room at one time, and really cool to be in the same room as all these guys talking about movies like we like to do. So if you like this kind of thing, share it with somebody you know. We might get something out of it. And please subscribe to our channel. We just recently met our goal, which we're very thankful for. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thank you for commenting out there and liking and subscribing and all the things you like doing so much. Do more of that, and get a conversation going below about this one. If you've seen it, certainly we'd like to talk about it. Or maybe what's your favorite Alexander Payne movie if you've seen other works of his and liked them.
Election.
But yeah, thanks for watching as always, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
I'll see ya.